inilah kemudian beliau bisa membagikan kepada para bapak ibu sekalian pada malam hari ini mengenai sebenarnya tidak ada satu hal yang mustahil bagaimana mengatasi pasien penderita autis. And Barrie, I just hope that your expertise, your experience in life, what the children also that you had before, then the time is yours. Maafkan sekali lagi kalau bahasa Indonesia saya mungkin tidak terlalu bagus, bukan karena
medical people. The original paper it's based on was for a specialist conference in Germany of bioresonance practitioners. This is people who use the BICOM machine. So I'll tell you a little bit about bioresonance. There'll be things in here that are too specialized. There'll be some things in here that are too specialized, and I'll skip through the slides. Okay, if I have the next one. This is some background on myself and my wife. We are from the UK originally, but we went to live in Australia in 1998 after training in the bioresonance technique. Now, my background, I used to work in physics and chemistry and applying these techniques to research problems in biology and medicine. And one of the things I did in relation to medicine, I developed an analytical technique for finding Helicobacter pylori. These are bacteria that cause stomach ulcers. And the people who discovered that got the Nobel Prize in 2005. So that's the sort of background I had. It was with instrumentation applied to both medicine and environmental science. Actually, it was half owner of a company that did these things. And one of the things that was a problem, I went to China on a lecture tour and came back very sick.
Pada dasarnya beliau datang dari England ke Australia tahun 1998 dan Bapak Ibu tahu di situ menjadi bikom terapis sejak 1997. Penelitian mereka di-applying di fisika dan kimia yang kemudian di-applykan atau diterapkan di dalam biologi dan kedokteran karena beliau seorang dokter. Dan juga tadi saya kalau tidak salah bahwa mengadakan penelitian tentang Helicobacter, satu bakteri di parut seperti itu, dan saya nggak tahu mau Pak Tommy, go ahead.
Okay, so the problem I had there, I thought I had got the flu, but it wasn't, because later when I was training as a BICOM therapist, I found that it had been it's Epstein-Barr virus, glandular fever.
Saya nggak tahu apa yang beliau katakan tadi bahwa dibilang mengenai satu penyakit yang dikira flu, tapi ternyata adalah satu virus yang namanya Epstein-Barr virus. This microphone because I cannot hear you.
Okay. Right. So then I had been falling asleep in the afternoon because of chronic fatigue. You can translate that one, or do you want to go on? Okay, so, but then, when I was training to do the BICOM therapy, it was treated, and then suddenly I got lots of energy back.
Sebelum melakukan terapi dengan BICOM, ketika beliau sering lelah dan suka tertidur dalam pekerjaan. Tapi setelah dengan terapi BICOM, dia merasa seperti energetik sekali, punya kekuatan. Dan saya tambahkan, I will add, Dr. Barrie, bahwa beliau baru kemarin baru tiba jam 12:30 pagi di Indonesia, di Jakarta, yang mana adalah jam 6 pagi. Dan langsung jam 9 pagi di sini beliau sudah mengadakan seminar, baru belum selesai event sampai saat ini.
You talking about the problem on the plane.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was my side of things. My wife, on the other hand, over here, she trained in Chinese medicine, 5-element type of Chinese medicine, and was setting up in practice doing that, doing acupuncture, and I wanted to do something similar, which is why I learned the Bicom therapy, because it uses an instrument, but does things like Chinese medicine.
Istrinya berminat di bidang akupunktur, yang mana dalam bersamaan sangat amat sesuai, serasi sekali dalam terapis.
Now, the other problem that she had a disease called Crohn's disease, which is a disease of the intestines.
Dia punya problem istrinya yang namanya penyakit Crohn, satu penyakit di usus.
And when I was learning the Bicom therapy, I found that people who did Bicom therapy could cure Crohn's disease because it was found to be a disease. It was found to be caused by allergies to wheat and cow's milk.
Ternyata bahwa dengan Bicom penyakit Crohn itu bisa disembuhkan karena penyakit Crohn itu ternyata adalah dasarnya karena alergi terhadap wheat, terhadap gandum dan susu.
So she was treated for that, and then she could eat anything she wanted and had no problems.
Setelah diterapi dengan Bicom dan sembuh, dia bisa makan apa saja dan melakukan apa saja.
So we were both happy because the Bicom therapy had worked for us.
Jadi mereka sangat senang sekali karena dengan Bicom, terapi Bicom mereka itu maksudnya berhasil. Bisa pada waktu anaknya berusia 8 tahun dia mempunyai reaksi yang sangat berat terhadap pewarna makanan.
So that made us study factors involved in hyperactivity.
Ini yang menyebabkan mereka berdua studi atau belajar lebih dalam lagi mengenai bagaimana mengatasi tentang anak-anak hiperaktif.
One of the things that I looked into was magnetic therapy.
Yang dipikirkan adalah satu terapi magnetik.
And one of the leaders in the field of magnetic therapy is Dr. William Philpott, who's a psychiatrist in America.
Salah satu pemimpin daripada teori magnetik ini atau terapi adalah Dr. William Philpott.
So he's a psychiatrist,
Seorang psikiater,
and he's also a clinical ecologist. A clinical ecologist is someone who looks for environmental factors that cause illness.
seorang dokter psikiater dan juga seorang clinical ecologist dari yang peneliti lingkungan gitu ya yang menyebabkan penyakit.
So he was looking at food allergies linked to problems with the brain, and he's published a book called Brain Allergies.
Meneliti makanan yang menyebabkan alergi pada otak dan mengarang satu buku dengan nama Brain Allergy. Brain Allergy.
So at the time, this is when I spoke to Philpott, it was before I got interested in the Bicom therapy.
Beliau pernah bicara dengan Dr. Philpott itu sendiri sebelum melakukan terapi Bicom, sebelum beliau mengenal Bicom.
But later, when we had set up a clinic and we were getting people coming to us with hyperactive children, I started to look at Philpott's work again.
Tetapi ketika mereka mempunyai beberapa pasien dengan hiperaktif pasien, mereka bisa melihat lagi apa yang pernah mereka perbincangkan dengan Dr. Philpott ini.
So that's one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight, is about how his work has influenced what we do in our protocol.
Ini salah satu yang akan berbincang dengan Anda malam hari ini.
Can I have the next slide? Okay, this is the outline of the talk. Some of it I'll miss, some of it I'll keep. So, first of all, I'll tell you what bioresonance therapy is. That's the therapy we do with the Bicom machine.
Apakah terapi bioresonansi itu?
Then I'll tell you what's meant by clinical ecology.
Jadi pendekatan lingkungan.
Then I'll talk about 3 theories as to how hyperactivity occurs. One is the fine gold approach, the other is Philpott, and the third is the role of phenolic chemicals.
Ada 3 teori mengenai bagaimana terjadinya hiperaktivitas, yaitu dengan pendekatan Bengold, dengan pendekatan William Philpott, dan juga peran daripada chemical yang namanya fenolik di dalam makanan.
And then this will discuss how we do the treatment. Some of it I'll have to remove because it's very technical.
Nah, ini bagaimana itu protokol terapinya.
And then there's finally 5 boys we studied who had autism.
Setelah itu beberapa studi tentang autism.
Okay, this tells you about bioresonance therapy. It's a therapy that uses frequency patterns, either taken from the body or from substances.
Apakah sebenarnya terapi bioresonansi adalah satu yang menggunakan pola frekuensi dari badan, dari tubuh, atau dari substansi?
And these are electromagnetic signals.
Tanda-tanda elektromagnetik.
You might wonder what electromagnetic signals are. There's one type of electromagnetic signal we can detect, and that is light. We detect light with our eyes, and light is a form of electromagnetic body. Cells in the body give off and receive.
Ada juga tanda-tanda elektromagnetik yang tubuh itu bisa menerima dan juga memberi.
And one of them is brain waves, and another is the waves from the heart, which use the ECG machine.
Salah satunya adalah gelombang otak, itu Bapak Ibu ketahui, dan juga dengan gelombang jantung yang kita dipakai di EKG.
Okay, so the next one. This is just to tell you what bioresonance therapy is famous for. It's famous for the treatment of allergies, especially food allergies. And this work is from Dr. Schumacher. He treated 200 children with food allergies, and 83% could tolerate the allergen. They could eat the food, in other words, after the treatment.
Apakah terapi bioresonansi yang terkenal untuk menterapi satu alergi yang mana studi intoleran tapi tidak ada gejala?
I'll stop here. I used to think it was just for allergies when I went to train in bioresonance therapy. And then I talked to other therapists on the training course, and they told me that it could also treat viruses and bacteria.
Dia pikir bahwa ternyata tadinya terapi bikom itu hanya untuk alergi, tetapi setelah berbincang dengan kolega yang lain, katanya bisa juga untuk terapi virus dan terapi bakteri.
Next slide, please. But the thing that's commonly known about bioresonance therapy is treating skin, two parts, right? This is after the treatment. So went from that to that is the treatment.
Ini gambarnya Bapak Ibu sudah bisa melihat bahwa alergi yang mengenai kulit sebelum dan setelah terapi.
So we show the skin because it's something that you can see, so it's obvious. What's not so obvious is when we treat allergies that affect different parts of the body.
Kalau kulit adalah kelihatan, kalau kulit bisa kelihatan, tapi ada beberapa yang alergi yang kita tidak bisa lihat.
Such as the part you're interested in tonight, which is the brain.
Seperti salah satunya adalah di otak kita.
Next. There's two concepts that we work with. One is called total body load, and the other is target organ.
Ada dua konsep pendekatan mengenai lingkungan, yaitu satu dengan body keseluruhan, tubuh keseluruhan, dan satu lagi dengan target kepada organ itu sendiri.
Total body load is to do with all the things in the environment that are affecting the person. Affecting the person. All the things in the environment.
Total body load itu menjadikan semua yang berpengaruh dalam lingkungan yang efek kepada tubuh orang itu.
So this can be foods, it can be pollens, it can be molds, it can be viruses, bacteria, all sorts of things. It can be poisonous chemicals.
Bisa makanan, bisa racun kimia, bisa dari racun makanan, bisa virus, bisa bakteri, dari itu banyak.
The next one. So this is the way you look at illness. You see that illness is a result of the body load of many things, many strains as we call them. All these things all add up, and this is like our body filling up with these things until the point when it overflows.
Jadi kalau saya gambarkan tubuh kita itu, body load kita itu seperti tong yang diisi begitu banyak stres, radiasi, seperti yang Bapak lihat, alergi, chemical, heavy metal, logam berat dan sebagainya yang bisa menyebabkan akhirnya satu penyakit kronis.
Next one. This is bit technical perhaps, this is another way to look at total body load. It's the effect of all the strains on the body, and the other thing is the resistance. The resistance is your body's defense against the strains.
Kalau dilihat bahwa total body load itu terdiri dari strain atau apa ya strain? What is strain? Strain or stress satu penggerak dan yang 25%-nya adalah karena satu daya tahan tubuh kita.
So what we're showing here, this here represents the strains before treatment, and this is the resistance before treatment.
Kalau Anda lihat bahwa yang dua, yang satu muda, yang satu umum, sebelum dan sesudah, ya tentang strain, tentang beban.
So after we've done the treatment, we get these strains out of the body, from that to that, and the resistance starts to come up.
Jadi beban, kalau tadinya daya tahannya rendah, setelah diterapi yang muda menjadi tinggi, sedangkan yang umum bebannya itu yang tadinya tinggi, sekarang setelah diterapi menjadi tinggi. Jadi tidak ada lagi sampah-sampah lagi seperti itu.
So next one. This is a bit technical. This is what we actually do with the treatment. We treat the main food allergens before the minor ones. So the main food allergens are much more important than things like pollen. If someone has hay fever, we actually treat wheat, and it fixes it faster. And then we do programs in the machine to get the toxins out of the body, things that activate the liver and the kidneys.
Yang dilakukan oleh BIKOM, kita menterapi beban yang paling berat dulu yang dinamakan sentral alergi, misalnya seperti gandum dan produk dairy, susu, kopi dan sebagainya. Kemudian dilakukan detoksifikasi atau buang racun untuk menaikkan satu tahanan ya di dalam organ.
Okay, this is explaining the target organ. But the target organ is the part of the body most affected when you have an allergic reaction. And that's your weak point, so that's where the symptoms appear. We can have 3 people who all have an allergy to wheat. One person, it will affect the lungs, so they have asthma. Another person, it affects the bowel, so they get colitis and Crohn's disease. Someone else, it affects the skin, they get eczema. And the case we're interested in is when it affects the brain. So this is what's happening. The food allergy is affecting the brain.
Satu alergen, misalnya kayak tepung, bisa mempengaruhi beberapa setiap orang. Jadi maksudnya gini, sama alerginya dengan tepung, tetapi dampaknya beda. Dampaknya beda. Jadi satu bisa yang dermatitis, satu bisa yang migrain, satu colitis, penyakit kronis, satu bisa asma.
Now, one of the approaches you're having a hard time. Now, one of the approaches is the Feingold approach. In the UK, there's a hyperactive children's support group, and they publish documents based on the Feingold approach. So what they're telling you is, if you avoid these foods, 2 groups of foods to avoid. One is synthetic colors and flavors, glutamate flavor enhancers, so that's MSG, nitrates, nitrites, benzoates, all these types of food additives, chemicals, artificial chemicals around the foods. And the other group is what's known as aspirin. Really, it's a group of foods called salicylates. And you would be amazed how many fruit and vegetable products contain salicylates. It's a naturally occurring thing. Now that's something we can treat. We can treat the allergy to salicylates. But the support group is just telling people to avoid them because that's the conventional approach. People who don't know there's a treatment for it, they avoid the food. So things like grapes and tomatoes are all high in salicylate. Next one.
Wait, I have to.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Jadi mengenai pendekatan mentor ini bilang ada dua yang diet karena disorder atau kelainan daripada otak. Dia bilang ada juga satu mencegah atau avoid, menghindari semua food yang penting, ya kan, sintetik warna sintetik, glutamat, nitrat dan listrik dan soat, kemudian ada BHA dan BHT. Ada food lain yang benar-benar avoid, menghindari aspirin, ya, yang atau makanan atau minuman yang penting salisilat, misalnya seperti tomat ataupun anggur, seperti itu.
But on the salicylate, a lot of what we know as healthy fruit and vegetables contain salicylate.
Ya, padahal katanya banyak yang healthy food, fruit contain salicylate.
So that's Dr. Feingold's approach. This one is Dr. Philpott. It's there. And Dr. Philpott believes that most brain disorders have what he calls an organic nature. That means it's something in the environment. It's a virus or food or some natural thing is triggering the brain disorder.
Dikatakan bahwa kelainan otak oleh Dr. Philpott semua berdasarkan adalah nature atau alam dari natural.
So he also points out that even what he calls minor brain disorders, they might not be minor to you, but in a psychiatrist's definition, these are minor compared to schizophrenia. So he's talking about ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and lethargy are caused by the same process as the major illnesses such as schizophrenia and manic depressive.
Dikatakan bahwa yang minor, yang kecil saja seperti disleksia, autism, termasuk yang kecil ADHD, bahkan kelelahan, bukan kelelahan yang sekarang ini, ya, katanya sama dengan masalahnya itu sama penyebabnya dengan yang major, dengan yang besar seperti skizofrenia, kemudian sebelah.
So Philpott believes that the brain problems occur in two stages. The first stage involves viruses.
Jadi kata Philpott bahwa kelainan di dalam otak itu karena dua tahap. Satu, karena virus.
Okay, and the starting point is usually a virus in the herpes family. Now, don't panic at the word herpes. It's a technical term for a different family of viruses. Not sexually transmitted.
Dari virus herpes, jangan mempunyai konotasi bahwa kalau herpes itu kemudian adalah STD, sexually transmitted disease, atau PHS, penyakit hubungan seksual.
So these are things like Epstein-Barr virus, the one that I got in China that caused chronic fatigue.
Misalnya EBR, Epstein-Barr virus.
CMV, which stands for cytomegalovirus. And human herpes virus 6. And what he believes happens is that it can be before, during pregnancy, while the baby is in the womb. The stress of pregnancy can cause these viruses to reactivate. So I'll say that again. These are viruses that become embedded in your DNA. Once you have it, you can't get rid of it, but it does go dormant.
Jadi dia bilang bahwa mungkin bayi pada waktu masih dalam kandungan, kalau ibunya punya stres daripada kehamilan, bisa mereaktivasi. Walaupun mungkin itu dia sudah pernah dan tidak ada lagi, tetapi secara informasi, secara DNA, itu virus masih ada dan bisa secara informasi juga, secara biofisika masih bisa reaktif lagi.
So what happens is either before or shortly after birth, the baby gets infected with this virus, and that starts to injure the brain, makes the brain the weak spot, the target organ.
Jadi kalau setelah lahir, bayi itu bisa terinfeksi dan akhirnya menyebabkan satu kelainan pada otak.
The second stage is that now that the brain is the target organ, so it's not the skin or the lungs, the brain, allergic reactions to foods or chemicals will target the brain.
tahapan yang kedua adalah mengenai alergi yang mengenai otak.
And in the USA, Philpott finds gluten is the most frequent, followed by milk and corn.
Di Amerika ditemukan bahwa gluten yang menyebabkan terbesar ya orang alergi dan menyebabkan kelainan pada otak.
He also points out that 2/3 of his schizophrenic patients have a gluten allergy.
Dia menyatakan bahwa 2/3 orang yang skizofrenia adalah alergi gluten.
And another factor is that gluten is highly addictive. During its metabolism, it converts to a narcotic substance, which makes it addictive.
Gluten itu adiktif sekali karena di dalam metabolismenya menjadi seperti narkotik. Yes, it is like narcotic that being addicted, Dr. Barrie.
Yeah, gluten is like a narcotic.
Seperti narkotik.
So that makes it difficult for people to avoid. Normally with an allergy you can say don't eat the food, but that makes it difficult for people to avoid.
Jadi sangat susah karena addicted, jangan makan ini karena dia sudah ada seperti addicted.
Okay, the next one. Another approach to the brain allergies is looking at what are called phenolics. Phenolics are chemicals naturally occurring in foods. They're like the salicylate, but they're different. And they've also been found to be linked to brain problems such as autism and hyperactivity.
Ternyata bahwa approach yang lain adalah fenolik itu banyak di dalam makanan, tetapi kita riset menyatakan bahwa fenolik itu memegang peranan penting juga di dalam terjadinya autism dan hiperaktivitas.
Next, please. This is just a list of some of the phenolic compounds. This one, for example, gallic acid, is in 70% of foods. So it's possible to avoid, but it can be treated by bioresonance technique.
Banyak fenolik itu yang memang dimakan seperti asal gallic acid yang ada di makanan Eugenia.
So this is just more on the phenolics. We can move to the next slide. So this is the protocol that we found to be effective. We combine clinical ecology, where we treat the major strains. Really this is mainly treating the foods, the main food allergies, the wheat and the cow's milk and the salicylates. Well, we have salicylates here, but treating the main foods is what we're doing here.
Jadi bagaimana tahapan protokol kepada anak-anak terapinya, yaitu kombinasi daripada clinical ecology, menerapi makanan yang dialergi.
And then the Philpott approach, which is looking for the activated herpes viruses and deactivating them, as well as the foods.
Mendeaktivasi virus.
The fine-gold approach, which is looking for allergies to food additives, the food colors, and the MSG.
Melakukan terapi alergi gluten gold pada food additive dan salisilat.
And the phenolics that we've just discussed.
Dan phenolics. Menterapi juga alergi terhadap phenolics.
So that's essentially what we do in the treatment.
Itulah yang dilakukan untuk terapinya.
Are we doing a time problem here? Conscious of time? Are we okay for time? Yeah, keep it. Right. Next slide. Yeah, this is just what we do in the first visit. We aim to remove energetic blocks. We'll move on to the next one. It's a technical point. Yeah, move on. This is just what we do. This is the therapists doing. Yeah, and again, this is all therapy work. This one here, this is sometimes what therapists have to do at a first visit. The children are quite often uncooperative with autism. Usually they're shouting, perhaps biting the mother. In cases we've had, they're pulling the mother's hair, biting the mother. very difficult to work with. And what we find is, without having to test to see what the problems are, this is one of the treatment programs we can run, and we just assume that they have a problem with the herpes viruses in the field model, and we just treat with a mixture of herpes viruses. We usually find that really works, and when they come back the next week, they have calmed down quite considerably.
Jadi biasanya pada pertemuan yang pertama banyak pasien hiperaktif dan autism yang tidak kooperatif sama sekali bedanya yang ada yang bantu segala macam apapun itu kita lakukan yang namanya basic program dan juga menterapi tentang virus herpes karena dipercayai bahwa mereka alergi atau ada kontaminasi dari virus ini.
Just another point down here at the bottom, just to point out that to have an allergy to gluten doesn't mean celiac disease. A lot of people think that gluten allergy is always celiac disease, which affects the small intestine, but that's only if the small intestine is the target organ. And here, it's the brain that's the target organ. The child in a more cooperative mood before we can do this thing, because it involves a headband, and we often don't like the headband that we put on.
Jadi dalam satu terapi untuk hiperaktif atau autism kita melakukan terapi membalansikan otak kanan dan otak kiri.
So next please. This is something we have to do, so if you take a child to a therapist, you may be asked to do this sometimes. There's things called masked allergies. These are ones that don't show up when they're tested for. Discovered by a doctor called Herbert Winkle, who had stayed off eggs and then ate some by mistake and had a reaction to it. So sometimes if you have the same food every day, which people often do, it's a cultural thing, the reaction will become exhausted and they won't test for it.
Kita menemukan alergi yang terselubung ditemukan oleh Dr. Herbert Winkle, dikatakan bahwa makanan yang kita makan setiap hari kadang-kadang tidak memberikan reaksi.
So you may be asked to keep the child off one of these foods for 4 days, and then after the 4 days they eat the food, and that will make a reaction appear, and they can be treated for it.
Jadi biasanya kita suruh dia abstinen puasa 4 hari baru makan, kita makan baru 90 menit sebelum appointment dites. Dites 90 menit sebelumnya makan, kemudian baru dites.
One of these foods that we have to treat sometimes is glucose. Glucose is really sugar. Sugars and white flour will break down to glucose in the body.
Yang salah satu yang penting alergi yang terselubung adalah gula, karena gula adalah satu hasil akhir daripada metabolisme karbohidrat.
So next one, please. Next. Oh, that's it. Okay, this is again. It's another masked allergy, but it's for glucose. Something we do later, and here you have to eat low sugar foods for 4 days, and then you have something sugary, cake and grape juice, and that will provoke it, so we can do test and treatment.
Jadi kalau misalnya salah satu alergi yang terselubung gula, jadi 4 hari diet rendah gula, kemudian sebelum dites suruh makan yang dengan sugar dan dengan starch dan tepung-tepungan, misalnya cake and grape juice, kemudian baru dites, baru kelihatan bahwa alergi apa tidak, alergi apa tidak.
When we do this test, sometimes we'll unmask the wheat and gluten as well, and yeast.
Jadi dengan persyaratan itu, setelah dites mungkin baru kelihatan bahwa oh iya ternyata ada alergi.
And the thing about doing these unmasking tests, where you have to stay off the food, you only have to do that once, and then after the allergy has been treated, you can eat the foods again without reactions.
Setelah diterapi, setelah melakukan itu 1 kali diterapi, kemudian kita bisa makan lagi tanpa ada reaksi.
Okay, next one. Okay, so here's these cases of autism that we looked at. It was 5 boys, aged between 2 and 6.5, and all became autistic after the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella. So you may have read in the press that the doctors in London who first discovered this problem have all been ridiculed, and there were 13 doctors on the paper, and all have eventually recanted and said, oh, they got it wrong. And you can believe that if you like, but the parents that we've seen all told us that the children could speak perfectly well until they had the vaccine, and after the vaccine they couldn't speak.
Dari case study autism ini 5 anak laki, 2 sampai 6,5 tahun umurnya, semua jadi autis setelah melakukan vaksinasi MMR, mumps, measles, rubella. Mereka juga menerima satu terapi perilaku. Apa sih tujuan daripada orang tua adalah untuk supaya dia bisa berbicara dan kembali ke sekolah. Dan ternyata setelah itu semuanya artinya bahwa bisa berhasil.
So what was good about this group was that they were all on a project run by the Lovaas Institute. It's an American organization, but they have people who do this in Australia. And so they're all receiving the same support from psychologists.
Yang sudah saya katakan, mereka juga selain daripada BICOM tentu kita akan dilakukan itu melakukan satu terapi ya perilakunya.
What the parents said when they came to us was that what they wanted was the children to be able to speak again and to be accepted at normal school. And they were all able to do that after treatment.
Yeah, I did that, and I said that all this is...
Oh, you've so 4 were tested on the measles part of the vaccine and 1 on the autism. If you translated all of it.
Not really, not all.
But also what we found was that all of them seemed to correspond to the Philpott field. They all tested on herpes viruses and all tested on measles.
Ternyata bahwa di autism dengan 5 anak laki itu semua positif terhadap herpes dan juga gluten, mungkin yang perlu dipertimbangkan.
The next one, please. These are all the substances that they tested on down here. So here's the number. So we have 5 on gluten, 4 on measles, 4 on cow's milk, 4 on glucose, 4 on copper. Copper is a bit of a local problem in southern Australia, I think. It's due to the shortage of some minerals in the soil. It causes the copper to be retained.
Bapak Ibu bisa lihat di sini 5 substansi yang paling atas yang dari 5 anak itu yang semuanya positif. Ya, gluten, measles, susu sapi, gula, dan copper, satu heavy metal ya, copper.
And then the viruses, we had 4 cases. Some of them had more than 1 virus. 4 cases of CMV, 3 of herpes zoster, which is chickenpox, 3 of Epstein-Barr, 3 of egg, and then we have 2 of salicylate. Malvin is a phenolic. We have a zinc problem. Polio vaccine was in there somewhere. This is a mosquito virus. This is a hormone. This hormone problem is caused by this mosquito virus, they're linked. And then we had 1 with mumps, 1 with rubella, 1 with gallic acid, 1 with herpes 6. So, yeah.
So, saya nggak akan baca satu-satu, tapi Bapak Ibu bisa melihat bahwa itulah substansi dari 5 anak ini yang mana itu positif.
The next one, please. Here's what has happened with time. After between 4 and 6 sessions, the herpes viruses and the main foods had all been treated. The hyperactivity had stopped. The other point is you get digestive problems go away. And it's worth pointing out that Andrew Wakefield, the doctor in London, who first discovered the link with the vaccine, he was actually a gastroenterologist, so he worked on digestive tissue.
Jadi bagaimana kemajuannya pada 5 anak itu setelah 4 sampai 6 kali sesi herpes virusnya dan alergi makanan yang kronik disembuhkan, tidak ada hiperaktivitas lagi dan problem pencernaan hilang, kemudian mulai bisa berbicara, membaca dengan keras dan mengenal bentuk serta warna.
And then, even after just 4 to 6 sessions, they're starting to talk again, reading out loud, recognizing shapes and colors. Remember, these children are also getting the behavioral support from the psychologists at the same time. Then, after 7 to 10 sessions, the behavior is so good that we can start to do these self-regulation treatments where we put the headband on and they don't pull it off anymore. Parents come and tell us that they can sit through a whole film, ride a bike, play football. They're starting to interact socially, have a conversation. The other thing you find is because they have a, as we showed before, they have a suppressed immune system, they get infections frequently. This is now becoming less common. However, a cold or a mosquito virus infection might reactivate the herpes virus and they'll go hyperactive again. But at this stage it's much easier to treat. They just come from one treatment and it's okay. And I'll let Linda translate that and then I'll say something else that we can do.
Okay. Setelah 7 sampai 10 sesi terapi, udah bisa diatur anaknya, bisa sitting, duduk, nonton film, the whole film, main sepeda dan sebagainya. Kemudian ada interaksi sosial, bisa melakukan conversation, percakapan dan mengikuti instruksi. Kemudian infeksinya menjadi lebih rendah karena immunity-nya dinaikkan, daya tahan tubuhnya. Setelah ini dikatakan bahwa cold atau demam atau karena virus dari nyamuk itu bisa mereaktivasi virus herpesnya dan bisa menyebabkan behavior atau perilaku yang beraktif lagi. One treatment, satu terapi bisa diaktifkan aja bahwa satu kali terapi aja dia bisa normal lagi.
Now, there's something else that we started to do to avoid this problem. After a few months after the treatment, what's happened, their immune system is built up, their resistance, as we call it, is built up, and they're able to have an infection, a cold or something, without the virus reactivating. But we've found another technique we could use. We could do a treatment without the patient being there, and put the treatment into a homeopathic medium. So we could make like a homeopathic remedy from the treatment. Give them that to take it home, and we just take some in water every day. So they take the homeopathic treatment every day in water, and then if the virus starts to reactivate, they've already got the remedy in their body fluids to counteract it. So we found that was a good way to stop the virus reactivating.
Setelah beberapa bulan, namanya juga manusia kadang-kadang kalau di pasien autis itu lalu itu cold, flu atau apapun kan bisa mereaktivasi virus herpes yang tadi. Ada satu cara dengan dikom bahwa kita taruh terapinya di dalam satu cairan yang dinamakan homeopati. Ya, kalau Bapak Ibu mungkin familiar dengan homeopati, sistem homeopati, satu pengobatan yang mana dibawa pulang. Jadi cairannya kemudian kita minum setiap hari sehingga kalau sampai terjadi demam lagi ataupun sehingga aku udah diterapi kok udah ada tidak ada gejala seperti itu.
And I found we have 100 therapists in Australia. Most of them will do children with behavioural problems if they're asked. And some I just spoke to recently and got a couple of some feedback on people they've treated. Therapist in New Zealand has just treated 2 boys, 5 and 7, and one of them is hyperactive. They're diagnosed as autistic. one is hyperactive, and the other one is described by the mother as switching between an angel and a demon. They've had after 4 treatments, they're making eye contact, and they're starting to speak. It's the same thing that we've found. And she said the grandmother said they were playing together better when she was babysitting. The father said they were more affectionate, actually giving each other cuddles. You want to? I'll stop for that. And they're able to take them on outings. They're much better behaved. So that's pretty much that one.
Dikatakan bahwa ada 100 terapis di Australia. Ini datang dari New Zealand tentang dua anak autis, umur 5 dan 7. Tapi setelah 4 kali treatment, nggak salah, oke? 4 kali treatment jadi better lagi, bisa eye contact, bisa cuddle each other, bisa hugging, bisa meluk each other, bisa outing, dan lebih affectionate, lebih mencintai.
What she found with the strains was gluten and cow milk.
Yang ditemukan bahwa alergi terhadap gluten dan susu sapi,
and the Epstein-Barr
dan
virus,
Epstein-Barr virus,
and the MMR vaccine.
dan MMR vaksin, jadi vaksin MMR.
And then I spoke to someone in Adelaide, and she's been treating this boy long term. We treated some of ours after those 10 treatments because they wanted to come for maintenance, so we come once a month. And this lady in Adelaide has been doing the same with an 8-year-old boy. She's been seeing him for 10 months. And when he first came, he kicked and screamed, and they had to hold him on the floor to do treatment. Now he comes for maintenance visits, and he happily jumps in the chair. Huge difference in speech, and he engages in normal conversation.
8 tahun di Adelaide setelah how many months treatment?
10.
Setelah 10 bulan, tadinya rendang-rendang nggak bisa sampai mesti bekerja di bawah lantai terapi. Sekarang setelah 10 months terapi bisa bicara lagi, conversation, and
normal
conversation. Jadi pada dasarnya tidak ada yang mustahil bahwa dengan BIPOM ini masih bisa ada harapan.
The other comment is a child psychologist we used to work with called Louise Porter. I don't think she comes here. She goes to Singapore to give talks. She's written quite a few books. And she actually has a Bicon machine at home that she uses just for the family. She doesn't use it as a practitioner. And she sends people, so if she gives a talk at a meeting like this, when she gets inquiries, she sends people to Bicon therapists. And what she told me was that she believes it's important to use the Bicon first to treat the physical aspects of the illness, and this makes it much easier for the educators and the psychologists to follow through.
So she is a psychologist.
She's a clinical children's psychologist.
What is the name?
Louise Porter.
Louise Porter. Saya tidak tahu bahwa mungkin Bapak Ibu ada yang pernah tahu karena sekarang itu banyak si Louise Porter ini. Dia juga punya BIPOM. Dia menganjurkan bahwa pada saat autis sebaiknya dilakukan terapi BIPOM dulu untuk aspek fisiknya, baru setelah itu lebih memudahkan untuk terapi secara psikologis. So, the conclusion is that there is an opportunity, possibility, opportunity to treat autism with Bicon. Jadi konklusinya bahwa ada satu jalan keluar, ada satu harapan baru bahwa dengan terapi BIPOM ini bisa lebih memudahkan pasien autis terkontrol dan lebih memudahkan untuk terapi yang lain. Dan you have so many evidence of that.
Yeah. Now, what I'd say is, what our experience is that we get them talking again, but there's still a need. The social interaction is, we've got some comment here that social interaction is improved, but I think once we get to that stage, that's when we do need the psychologists to come in and